again, it just tells the story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Think Tank. So we are just waiting for an update on what went on in Southport. It's horrendous. I can't believe that this type of thing is still carrying on. Is this something that'll ever change, or is it like beating a dead horse? It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So let's see what they should be joining us any minute here. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to say because, you know, enough is enough already. We just did live on a rapper that was deleted. We have been working on Trump's attempted assassination. We've been working on Sonia Massey. Let's hear what these guys have to say. I'm going to mute out.
Chief Constable Serena Kennedy from Merseyside Police. It is with great sadness today I'm here to advise that 2 children have died as a result of the injuries sustained in this morning's knife attack. 9 other children have been injured and 6 of them are in a critical condition. All those injured have suffered stab wounds sustained during the attack, and 2 adults are also in a critical condition after being injured during the incident. A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire, who is originally from Cardiff, has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and is being taken to a police station where he will be interviewed by detectives. My officers were called to reports of a stabbing at 11:47 this morning and at an address in Southport. When they arrived, they were shocked to find that multiple people, many of whom were children, had been subjected to a ferocious attack and had suffered serious injuries. It is understood that the children were attending a Taylor Swift event at a dance school when the offender, armed with a knife, walked into the premises and started to attack inside the children. We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked. As a mum and a nana, I can't begin to imagine the pain and suffering that the families of the victims are going through at this moment in time, and I wish to send my heartfelt condolences to them. Our specialist family liaison officers are providing support to the families of the deceased children and the children who were injured at this moment in time. And we'll be working with our partners, including Sefton Council, to provide that wider trauma support to those who've been affected by this incident. The investigation is in its and we'll be working with our partners, including Sefton Council, to provide that wider trauma support to those who've been affected by this incident. The investigation is in its early stages and the motivation for the incident remains unclear. However, Counter-Terrorism Police North West have offered their support to Merseyside Police as the full circumstances of what has happened are being established. At this moment in time, the investigation is not being treated as terrorist related. I would appeal to anyone who's witnessed anything or who has information that could help us the investigation to contact us on Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111. And anyone who's been affected by this incident can contact Victim Care Merseyside Service for help and support. Our hub of locally trained staff are here to provide free and emotional support and practical tailored advice to you. You can contact the Victim Care Hub Merseyside on 0808 175 3080. Thank you.
My name is Dave Kitchen, and on behalf of North West Ambulance Service, we'd like to offer our sincere condolences to those families who tragically lost loved ones today, and to the wider community. Our thoughts are with you. I can confirm that we were called to the Hart Street area in Southport just before lunchtime today to an incident of reported multiple stabbings. We declared this as a major incident due to the number of casualties and the types of the injuries sustained. A substantial number of ambulances and specialised resources were dispatched to the scene, including our hazardous area response team, air ambulances and merit doctors. Tragically, we can confirm that 2 lives have sadly been cut short. We treated 11 casualties on scene, who were conveyed by emergency ambulance and helimed to Alder Hay Hospital, Royal Manchester Children's Hospital, along with Aintree University, Southport Formby and Ormskirk General Hospitals. I'd like to thank our staff who worked incredibly hard, caring for the victims in what was a devastating scene. I'd also like to thank our Blue Light and emergency colleagues from the NHS, the wider NHS, for all their support during this incident. And again, we'd like to express our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of those affected. No doubt this incident will have a lasting impact on the whole community, and our thoughts are very much with them at this difficult time.
Phil Garrigan, Chief Fire Officer for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. And my colleagues, I would like to pass on my thoughts and those of my service to the family, friends and loved ones of everyone affected by this horrific incident. This is not something that anyone should have to come to terms with. In relation to the incident itself, my firefighters responded following the declaration of a major incident and were on the scene in minutes. With crews from Southport Fire Station and a specialist team from Aintree responding to assist our colleagues from Merseyside Police and North West Ambulance Service, who were dealing with a traumatic and understandably chaotic scene. The crews, who were trauma trained, worked alongside their colleagues to provide trauma care, administer first aid, and undertake a wide area search for any other persons affected by this incident. My firefighters, many of whom live in this community, will be appalled by this act, but they will be back on the streets of Southport tomorrow to provide reassurance, kindness and support. The crews themselves were stood down at 4:18 p.m. this afternoon.
Well, that was brief. Oh my word. So let's see here, guys. So the UK spree injuries, multiple kids at a Taylor Swift themed event. Just chaos, guys. My word. Lordy, lordy. At least 8 people have been injured and a 17-year-old suspect is in custody following a nabbing spree in the UK that is being described by its Prime Minister as deeply shocking. The attack unfolded around 11:50 a.m. local time in Southport, a town north of Liverpool, according to Sade Police. Jeez. According to Myerside Police, who said armed police have detained a male suspect and seized a weapon in the area of where this attack happened at a Taylor Swift yoga and dance workshop catered to young children. The Northwest Ambulance Service said it has so far that it has treated 8 patients with nab injuries who were transported to Alder Hey Children's Hospital and other facilities. The Children's Hospital said in its own statement that our emergency department is currently extremely busy and that it takes parents to bring their children there only if it's urgent. A local resident told Sky News that his mother was nearby when the attack occurred and she saw the bodies covered in red DNA. She goes out and she goes around to see what happened, and all she said was she saw a member of police and ambulances carrying out a few bodies of girls. They were in white, but they were covered in red. She said she could see the wounds in the backs of the children, noting that one woman was screaming that she could not find her child. They let her go into the cordon and she ran down. All you could hear is her screaming and crying, saying, "That's my child, that's my child." Merseyside Police confirmed a number of reported casualties from the incident, saying officers responded to a property on Hart Street. Please avoid the area while we deal with this incident. There is no wider threat to the public. They later identified the suspect as a 17-year-old male from Banks, a village outside of Southport. At this early stage, inquiries are ongoing to establish the motive of this tragic incident, and we would urge people not to speculate while the investigation is ongoing. Police said in a statement, we can also confirm that the incident is not currently being treated as a terror-related, and we are not looking for anybody else in connection. My thoughts are with all those affected, and I would like to thank the police and emergency services for their swift response. Oh my God. Let me see if I can bring up anything else that might possibly make this that much clearer. Let me see here.
What are you able to tell us?
Okay. Let's go.
What people there are saying about what they saw and what they heard?
I think it's still a confused picture for a lot of people here. We're standing at one of the police cordons and all along Hart Street from where we are down to what appears to be where this incident took place, where there is still a lot of police and emergency services activity, a lot of flashing lights still, a lot of police vehicles, a lot of ambulances, a fire engine I can see down there as well. There are small groups of people outside of houses within the cordon looking down that road, and you can see the concern. You can see on people who've been allowed back into the cordon, who've come home and are returning to their houses, the concern on their faces at what has taken place, and of course the questions about what we don't yet know about what has taken place on this very quiet residential street. Southport is a seafront town. It's a popular destination, especially on a day like this, a warm day and the school holidays. We came from Preston, and people in Preston say, oh, everyone has gone to Southport today because the weather's so nice. This is a residential street. We know there are businesses that are in some of these buildings, formerly homes, now used as businesses, but the focus very much about 500 yards from where I'm standing and where you can see that enormous amount of activity. We have seen in the last 5 minutes some paramedics leaving the scene. It's suggesting, of course, this is, as much as it is still a dynamic scene and things are going on, that some of the work has been done here already and they are leaving, but still a series of cordons in place along Hart Street, on some of the feeder roads that go into Hart Street as well, just to keep the public away. The police advice that they've given to the local community is to stay away from this area. There is a lot of activity, clearly. There is a lot of interest in what has happened, but a lot of speculation as well, and they've cautioned the public against that kind of speculation, particularly on social media, about what may have happened here. The earliest reports about what was going on were being posted on social media, where people as
You guys, a 17-year-old is responsible for this. A 17-year-old, you guys. God almighty.
we heard a little earlier from that man who saw the air ambulances arriving in number near his home, suggested to people here that this was something significant that was taking place even before the police declared that major incident in the area. They have told the public that they believe there is no wider threat. They have someone in custody, but of course for other parts of the emergency services, not least those hospitals where some of those affected in this incident have been taken, the work is ongoing. And that major incident at Alderhay Hospital, for example, a children's hospital in Liverpool, at others, Aintree and Southport Hospital as well, that work is obviously still going on and clearly will be for some time, as is the investigation here, and a lot of police resource, some more arriving now actually, a lot of police resource in this area as that investigation goes on.
We're seeing emergency services using a local high school as a base from some images that we are getting from social media. More scientific support officers arriving at the scene as well. This is clearly going to be underway for quite a long period of time, this incident.
Yeah, I think we've just seen more officers arrived in unmarked vehicles, police officers, and in fact we're just being told that more vehicles will be arriving. So we should keep out of the way of those vehicles that are arriving to come through this cordon. In fact, we'll just move the camera to make sure we're not in anyone's way trying to get into the scene. It is clear that there is a lot of activity down there still, and has been what the police were first called at 10 to 12. And the response from what people have said here was overwhelming and huge in its number, and is ongoing. That's very evident, and I think we expect there will be updates from Merseyside Police and the North West Ambulance Service as the afternoon goes on. But from what they have told us, and the scale of resources, particularly those 13 ambulances that were dispatched here, the hazardous response teams, the merit doctors as well, tells you a lot about the scale of what they're dealing with down there. And as we await more news from the police, of course, the concern for the locals that we can see on the corners outside of houses, on the streets surrounding this area.
Unreal, you guys.
So from their perspective, what had happened and what was going on, I think you can see from our they said, as well as they call merit doctors, and patients are taken to a hospital in Liverpool. That is declared a major incident, as a children's hospital.
Oh my word, you guys.
Point, there's a mass stabbing that has been reported in UK Southport. Multiple people have been stabbed. In fact, there are some international agencies that are reporting that at least 8 people have been stabbed and a man has been held, is what the initial report is coming on at this point. There's a man who has been detained and a knife has been seized.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Good Lord, you guys.
Metropolitan Police Officer, and is the founder of the Law and Order Foundation. Is also an expert on knife crime. Norman, welcome to the show. Can I first get your take on, of course, has been a rapid and very effective response from the police and the emergency services. They got a lot of criticism, Norman Brennan, but they once again running into danger, dealing with this, and oftentimes what a lot of those people will see will be very traumatic for them too.
Absolutely, Martin. My first comments will be my thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure that of millions of other people in Britain, to those involved and their families. And the two primary concerns are that the suspect, who would pose a danger if he was still free, has been neutralised. He's not been shot. From what I understand, he's not been seriously injured, but he's been taken out of circulation. That has to always be the priority. And the second one is that all the victims are now being treated in hospital. I'm sure some may well have life-threatening injuries from what I read into this. And let's just pray that they're all saved and they're in the best hands possible. And here we are again with a major knife attack incident on the streets of Britain. What
They have a lot of incidences involving those pointy weapons, more than any place that I've seen. I'm not quite sure why that is, but we're sure seeing it often. And now they're going after children.
I want to make clear is this, Martin, is that, again, nobody should speculate. Nobody should be posting on social media horrific and gratuitous images of children or any victim that are suffering. And another overview is this: we've got to be calm. We never know whether someone is a terrorist, self-radicalized, someone that has got mental health issues, or somebody that has actually just gone out with a knife and gone out and committed this absolute mayhem. They're the four types of people that normally commit knife crime. And we could never know, Martin. There are times that we can never know, if they're not on our radar, that someone is going to go and do this. We do not live in a perfect world. So let's be calm, let's be rational, and let's await the Merseyside police to tell us the true facts of what's happened this morning.
I'm going to watch for those updates. This is, oh my God, this is brutal.
And Norman Brennan, it's also important to point out that these kind of incidents, mercifully, are incredibly rare in the United Kingdom. In fact, the last knife attack, machete attack at a school was in 1996 that I could find in Wolverhampton. That was an individual called Hart Campbell, ended up getting life in prison. 18 children attacked at a teddy bears picnic. In that instance, Norman Brennan, he was a paranoid schizophrenic. He made out, he heard voices of the children taunting him. He was sent down for life, a different case, but just making the point, Norman Brennan, these kind of cases, it seems random attacks on children are incredibly rare in Britain. And in this instance, the individual has been safely apprehended and the police have identified there is no wider threat to the community at present.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Martin, to make that explicitly clear. It is very rare that our children are stabbed and murdered in Britain by strangers. Most often it's done by, sadly, a parent or someone very close to the family. But just spreading out a little bit further from what you've stated, I post on homicide, gun and knife crime on a daily basis. I know the trends of crime around Britain, and transversely from what you're saying, and thankfully these stabbing attacks on children are so very rare, thank God. However, in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've posted about 10 or 12 double and triple stabbings in Britain, not just London, around Britain. Knife crime in Britain is out of control. It's at an epidemic stage. The police sadly cannot control it, but thankfully on cases such as this morning in Merseyside, they've got a very good armed response teams there, turned up very quickly, and the public should be proud of the great police officers that, as you rightly highlighted earlier on, run towards danger. They risk their lives. And there are times when the police will risk their lives dealing with a volatile situation, pretty much like we saw almost a week ago, where they may seem to get it wrong. Well, you try being a police officer dealing with probably a life-threatening incident or an incident where you or your colleagues are likely to be seriously injured. We don't have robo-cops. We have human beings that do their best, and you have got one of the best police services in the world. And I think today just highlights how the public should be proud of them.
And Norman Brennan, it's also worth backing that point up by the fact historically, back in the day, the Merseyside Police Force, along with Glasgow and others, had a big problem with knife crime, and they formed violence reduction units and very effectively deployed stop and search and lowered fatalities and knife crime in their area. But you can never account, Norman Brennan, for a lone wolf, somebody who may just decide to do something like this, irrespective of where you are in Britain. And Norman Brennan, that turns on to the next point of the conversation, the availability of knives, the penalties, the punishment for carrying knives. And I know this is something that you're incredibly passionate about. What would you like to see changed?
Well, what I'd like to see, Martin, is a Prime Minister, a Home Secretary and a government take it seriously. When I was a serving police officer myself, I faced 2 life-threatening assaults, one following the other. For 4 years, I underwent operations. So I know the devastation of knife crime. I went to number 10 with a number of homicide families. All had lost a child or a loved one through knife crime. And we pleaded with Tony Blair and the Labour government back then on...
What do you guys think it's going to take to make this violence stop? Look at what we've been covering today. Like, what can a person do? What can the powers that be, what can they do?
Certain issues and initiatives that they needed to address. And in 30 years, 15 of them whilst serving police officer, now as a retired police officer and a passionate campaigner on knife crime, there isn't one government, Martin, that has listened and acted and taken knife crime seriously. They always deal with the froth. Well, it's time that this government, because they're in power now and will be for at least the next 5 years, start dealing with the substance. And I've always advocated a minimum of 5 years imprisonment for carrying a knife. I know some people say, my God, 5 years is a long time. Well, when you've been stabbed to death, you're dead for a long time. You're dead forever. And we need to start taking knife crime seriously. I don't know whether today is the right time to say, would it have saved these young girls from being seriously injured and others that have been? But until this government take knife crime seriously and the criminal justice system take it seriously, all this business about banning machetes, only 24 out of all the hundreds of murders were by machetes. Banning them will not stop children and young men carrying knives that they can pick up from their kitchen drawer and going out and stabbing someone. We need to address it. We need a massive education program. We need mass stop and search. We need mentors. We need people to go into prisons. We need to give kids something more positive to do. We've got too many people in this generation.
It's a big job. It's a big job, but something has to be done.
Generation that've got no hope, no values, often no value of their life. So if they've got value of their life, they're not think twice for taking another's life. And often it's the police officers that have to challenge these people. We need a big wake-up call and a massive education initiative put into place.
Well, Norman Brennan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and, sage-like wisdom on this traumatic day. Norman Brennan, who's a former Metropolitan Police officer and is the founder of the Law and Order Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. And the Prime Minister has also issued a short statement on the major incident in Stockport. Horrendous and deeply shocking news emerging from Southport. My thoughts are with all of those affected. I would like to thank the police and emergency services for their swift response. I'm being kept updated as the situation develops.
My word. Okay, we're going to jump over here, you guys. I might have to take lots of breaks. I'm not quite sure about these guys. My word. So last, it looked like there was 8 kids. But I'll keep looking for an update. See if the numbers, wouldn't it be nice if they went down? Yeah, praying for them all. This 17-year-old went after children. They're going to be busy for a while, aren't they? 13 ambulances, I think they said. And everyone gone to the children's hospital. Just heart-wrenching. I'm just looking to see if I've got anything else right now.
Perhaps having a coffee, going out for a meal, going out for lunch. It is the school holidays, and messages are starting to circulate around local WhatsApp groups. Lots of people taking their own initiatives, I guess, and kind of taking from the police's statement and adding to it. They are saying within those WhatsApp groups, lock your windows, lock your doors. Some people taking matters into their own hands, despite the fact that there has been said to be no wider threat to the public, and the police are simply asking the public to just avoid the area whilst they deal with this incident. And I think we can fairly say that it appears to be isolated, but how big this incident is, we simply don't know at this stage. Among some of the messages that are being shared within WhatsApp groups are some from local people who are saying, we are all absolutely terrified, panicking, sick with worry. Everyone is trying to reach anyone they know in the area. I don't know how this can happen on a Monday lunchtime. One woman has said on social media, she lives locally, she's been running down the street telling her neighbours to lock their doors and windows, and that one of her neighbours had barricaded herself and her kids in their bedroom. But as Merseyside Police have been stressing, there is no wider threat to the public, but we do know from the ambulance statement in the last few moments that a number of resources from their side have been deployed to try and save these lives.
You're watching Sky News. If you're just joining us, let's just bring you the latest that we are hearing. There's been a serious incident.
Okay, so Michael, who is fairly close, what did you say, 20 odd miles from where this happened, is saying 2 children have passed, 8 children critical, and 2 adults critical. Oh, Lordy.
Something has happened in Southport on Hart Street a little bit earlier this morning. We have a full statement from Merseyside Police. They are saying that we can confirm that emergency services are in Southport following a major incident this morning on Monday, the 29th of July. At around 11:50 a.m, we were called to a property on Hart Street to reports of a stabbing. There are a number of reported casualties, and more details will be confirmed when possible. Armed police have detained a male and seized a knife. He has been taken to a police station.
Jeez.
Please avoid this area while we deal with this incident. There is no wider threat to the public.
My word.
We've also had a statement from the Northwest Ambulance Service. You can see its ambulances there in these images. They say that its paramedics were responding to reports of multiple stabbings in Southport. They say we're attending a major incident on Hart Street, Southport, following reports of multiple stabbings in which we have dispatched multiple resources. We're assessing the situation and working with emergency partners, and please follow our channels and Mersey Police for further updates. This only happened less than 2 hours ago, so we are still waiting to get any further update from the ambulance service or the police. But our correspondent Ashna Hurinag is following this story and is in the newsroom.
Was it
for us? And Ashna, clearly the scale of the response, we know that there are a number of reported casualties. When we look at the scale of the response, the number of ambulances that have been sent down there, it is clearly very serious.
Lordy, lordy. Pray for these babies.
And from what I can see, there are lots of people who are gathering at that cordon, looking on to try and see if they can see anything. There are also a lot of officers from Merseyside Police on site. We know that people have been hearing that several police sirens were heard, but also several ambulance sirens too. And we know there are a number of vehicles from emergency services present. We know there really is a helicopter in the vicinity. Unclear whether that is an air ambulance service or whether that is a police helicopter assessing it from above. But you can see, if there is a shot that I'm currently looking at, Hart Street, you can see the cordon directly in front of it, 2 officers standing in front, and a sea of vehicles beyond either side, filling the street. On either side, you can see residential houses, and it's a tree-lined street. And there looks to be a number of officers in this melee of vehicles. I can see just on this particular photograph that I'm describing to viewers and describing to you, there are at least 5 ambulances, and at least in this photograph, 4 police vehicles. We know there are many more that have been on site. The Northwest Ambulance Service, as I say, have been attending what they call a major incident. That is the same wording that we are hearing from Merseyside Police. We understand that officers there are also treating this as a critical incident, given the scale of resources that we are seeing being deployed to this specific area. I think we can draw from that how serious this incident clearly is, given the fact that the wording has been so clear, but also the pictures are quite stark coming out of it too. This is an area of Merseyside, a small town just outside of Liverpool. In Southport, there are lots of people out and about, as I can see from those photographs. Lots of people in shorts and T-shirts. It's a lovely day here in England, and lots of people who have been out enjoying the school summer holidays, but clearly a huge amount of concern for people in that local area.
And like you, Ashna, spending time looking at social media, looking at the images that are coming through now, seeing...
It's just devastating. It's absolutely devastating what's going on. It does look like it would, I mean, beautiful. Big lake, right by the ocean.
As well down there. Local journalists saying that they understand a number of people have been injured today. So we know it's more than one, I think, is all we can really safely say, isn't it, Ashna? That multiple reports of multiple stabbings, clearly enormous local concern, and the fact that so many ambulances have been sent speaks really to the seriousness of what the police have been dealing with, and the fact that they sent armed police down there.
So is that very far from where Southport is located, Michael?
I agree. And seeing the speculation on social media, some local businesses have decided to close for the day, given the scale of deployment they've seen outside of their windows. Some people have been advised just simply by the local community that they're taking their own initiative and taking matters into their own hands and choosing to shut up shop, or at least if they're at home with their families, to close their windows and to lock their doors. But I think it is important to make clear that from Merseyside's perspective and from their statement that we've seen and heard from in the last half an hour or so, they have said there is no wider threat to the public, but they have urged people to avoid the area. What we do know is that when we got told of this incident, in the same statement as when police told us about what was unfolding and the fact they're dealing with multiple casualties, we also found out that they had arrested a man who has been taken into custody, and that they had seized a knife nearby. But we know that the scale of this is such that the detail is that the police are dealing with multiple stabbings and multiple casualties from this from these reports of a stabbing.
And Asha, as we can see from the images, of course, the road's blocked, the road's cordoned off. The police are urging people to avoid this area, aren't they? But that, unfortunately, if people are concerned, if they have friends, if they have relatives who live down there or may have been visiting that street, will not discourage people from going down there. But the police really are urging people to continue to avoid this area while they deal with the incident, because, as they say, there is no wider threat to the public.
There is this, it is always a lot of chaos and confusion when incidents like this do unfold, and there tends to be lots of members of the public who do want to see what's going on, because it is so unusual to see such a huge presence like this and to see cordons being put up, and a lot of questions will start circulating, and especially on social media there will be that speculation that will come from this. But lots of people in doing so, in trying to go down to a cordon, do sometimes get in the way of police officers trying to contain and control an incident like this, particularly when they are unclear, or we certainly are unclear, and there's only so much information that we can share with the public because we're relying on police statements, unclear of how many casualties police are caring for and paramedics are caring for. And given that the incident appears to be isolated on this street, that is still quite a large area for police to try and get a handle of, and to search properties if that needs to happen. We understand and we know that they were called to a property.
Okay, I'm going to bounce over here for a minute, you guys.
The rest of us now wait for the confirmed details from the police and the ambulance services and those hospitals about exactly what has happened. They've cautioned, as police often do now after serious or in the middle of major incidents like this, caution people to beware of what's on social media, because there is so much that's out there that sometimes proves accurate, sometimes doesn't. And they don't want that kind of information spreading, because of course there will be family members of those who've been caught up in this who will need to hear the facts and need to hear the official version of events rather than something that's circulating on social media. And they will be very conscious of that always, that there are real people in the middle of this, real lives, family members, friends who will be frantic for information and to know what's gone on. And that spreads out from here, of course, from the scene where this investigation goes on to those three hospitals. And you mentioned Alderhay, of course, which is a children's hospital. That's one of the preeminent children's hospitals in the country. And the focus, I think, spreads from here to all of those places. And of course, the investigation. We know someone has been arrested. The police saying there is no wider threat to the public, but still a lot for people to learn about what's happened here. And it is still very early stages. Of course, it was only 10 to 12 this morning when the police say they were called here. So it's very early stages, and yet there is, of course, a clamour to know the answers to what happened here. From where I'm standing, I can't see any ambulances. I'm looking through the flashing lights that we can see, the blue lights. I can see vans, but I think they are police vehicles and that fire engine that you mentioned down at the other end of the cordon. I don't think there are any ambulances here now. Obviously, those air ambulances left. Some of the paramedics who come in regular unmarked vehicles, they have left the scene. As far as we tell, as far as we can tell, there could be more down there, but I don't see any ambulances as such in what I can see. But it's a confusing picture down there, and it is a real melee of emergency services response, and at quite a distance. So it seems, and from what we've heard from the Northwest Air Ambulance Service and those hospitals, that those who needed to be transferred from here have been transferred, and that work, of course, would have happened very urgently. That's why they use air ambulances, particularly to somewhere like Alderhay. It's about 18 miles away. To get there so quickly is, of course, the priority. So it would appear that those who needed help, those who needed to be transferred from here, would have been transferred very quickly to receive the best possible care that they could have in a hospital setting rather than here at the scene. But if it's not ambulances, there is a lot of activity. And as I say, the police have told us more vehicles are due to arrive through this cordon to make.
You guys, you know, the numbers could very easily start going up. It sounds like they took out the immediate people that were in threat of passing, you know, and maybe there's other ones that were less seriously injured that we will learn about in the coming days, hours, minutes.
Sure, we're all safely out of the way as they make their way through and down to that scene.
That could be dead fox.
Yeah, we'd expect an update. Bear in mind the more information we've had from the ambulance service confirming the kind of numbers that they were dealing with here. We would expect an update from the police at some time reasonably shortly. You would imagine they know there's enormous interest, not just from the media, of course, from members of the public and the dozens of families on this street alone who clearly will want to know what's gone on and what will happen next. But at the moment, it is from the police those bare facts about what they were called to here this morning, and as I say, that cautioning that there is no wider threat to the public, and that there is no and cautioning people again against speculation about what may have happened on social media. There is a lot of work going on down there.
How tragic.
I've got to say it's mainly media where I'm standing. There are some people who've come down to find out, like us, what's happening. I've not spoken to anyone who's been inside the cordon as yet. There are people who've returned since we've been here and have been allowed through because they live in one of the houses nearest to the end of the street here. I think it's confusion. I think people heard sirens. They've seen a lot on social media about what has happened, but not.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, 1 second, I'm just sort my earpiece out.
Lordy.
Just put it up the back of my phone. And I'll grab it. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Sounds great.
Goes on.
So everything that we're doing right now is speculation unless it's come out from the authorities. If it hasn't, then we listen, we learn, we speculate, but nothing is fact until we get it from the authorities.
There's going to be cars coming in and out of here, you know, for quite a while. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, I think we've just seen more officers arriving in unmarked vehicles, police officers, and in fact, we're just being told that more vehicles will be arriving. So we should keep out of the way of those vehicles that are arriving to come through this cordon. In fact, we'll just move the camera to make sure we're not in anyone's way, trying to get into the scene. It is clear that there is a lot of activity down there still, and has been what the police were first called at 10 to 12. And the response from what people have said here was overwhelming and huge in its number, and is ongoing. That's very evident, and I think we expect there will be updates from Merseyside Police and the North West Ambulance Service as the afternoon goes on. But from what they have told us, and the scale of resources, particularly those 13 ambulances that were dispatched here, the hazardous response teams, the merit doctors as well, tells you a lot about the scale of what they're dealing with down there. And as we await more news from the police, of course, the concern for the locals that we can see on the corners outside of houses, on the streets surrounding this area.
That's horrendous. I know a lot of people have that same belief. Look what just happened in the U.S. with Trump. I'm Canadian, and we deal with our own types of issues. We are not allowed guns in Canada, so they find other type of weapons to use. You like Sky, do you? Okay.
Oh, right. Southport.
Well, hopefully we get an update from law enforcement and we can learn maybe where this kid came from, what his problem is it females, is it kids, what the hell is going on with this kid? What would drive a 17-year-old to do something?
What do they do? Running one of these houses?
No. So we'll bounce over here.
Resources, and the armed police were also deployed in this way. It gives you a sense of how serious this would be for officers and emergency services personnel who are on the ground. We've just heard and had a statement through from Merseyside Police's Police and Crime Commissioner, Emily Spurrell. She has said on social media in the last few moments, like everyone, I am deeply shocked and concerned about the major incident in Southport this morning. An arrest has been made and there is no wider risk to the public I would urge people to be careful about what they share online and not to speculate about this incident. All the while, we are hearing that there are a number of casualties that paramedics are trying to work with and to try and save the lives of.
Oh, Lordy.
Ashna, we've just got an update from Northwest Ambulance Service in the last minute. They have confirmed that they are responding to a major incident following this call at 11:48 to these reports of multiple stabbings. They say that they have dispatched 13 ambulances, along with specialised resources of our hazardous area response team, air ambulance and merit doctors to the scene. So far, they have treated 8 patients with stab injuries who have been taken to Alderhay Children's Hospital, Aintree University Hospital, and Southport and Formby Hospital. There were reports on social media that a number of children had been attacked in this incident.
Good Lord.
We at Sky News hesitated before we brought that news to you, but the ambulance service have now confirmed that they have taken casualties to Alderhay Children's Hospital, which does suggest that at least some of the victims here may be children. They have treated 8 patients with stab injuries. So the hospitals that they have been taken to, Alderhay Children's Hospital, Aintree University Hospital, and Southport and Formby Hospital. An enormous response from the Northwest Ambulance Service. They have dispatched 13 ambulances down there to this residential street with specialised resources of the hazardous area response team, the air ambulance and merit doctors to the scene.
So welcome to our UK friends, and thank you very much for helping us understand where the area is, possibly, you know, what happened. I really appreciate you guys being here.
As well. Let's just return to Ashna Hurinag, our correspondent, who is monitoring this situation for us. And it is the worst possible news, isn't it, Ashna? There had been a lot of people on social media speculating that children were involved. It's not news that you would want to say unless you knew it would be true. But it does appear now that Northwest Ambulance Service confirming that they've taken patients to Alderhay Children's Hospital does suggest that there are children amongst these casualties.
This is the worst possible news. When you hear about reports of a stabbing, any reports of any casualties is incredibly distressing. But to hear, as we've had confirmed, Jane, as you read out to viewers, that there are a number of children who have been taken to hospital and are being treated with stab injuries. This really is the worst possible news for parents of those children and for those in that local area. Alderhay Children's Hospital is one of the largest children's hospital in the UK. This is a huge response, and the fact that we have had people and children involved in this taken to 3 of the largest hospitals in that area just tells you how much of a critical incident this has been for services. 13 ambulances alongside their specialist resources from their hazardous area response teams, their air ambulance and merit doctors on the scene. This has been a huge operation for them. But the worst possible news to come from this, that some of those victims involved in this incident in Southport and those who are being treated for those incidents include children who with stab injuries who have been taken, some of them, to Alderhay Children's Hospital. We know that police have been responding to this incident now for almost or just over 2 hours. They were called to reports of multiple stabbings, and as we have had confirmed from the Northwest Ambulance Services, that some of those involved were children.
Yeah, we're just looking at the latest information from Northwest Ambulance Service. They say it is a major incident update, and it clearly is a very, very significant event that has happened in Southport a little bit earlier this morning at around 10 to 12. The police and the ambulance services called to a property on Hart Street. In the last few moments, Northwest Ambulance Service confirming they have treated 8 patients for stab injuries. Some of them have been taken to Alder Hey Children's Hospital, suggesting that children are among the victims, as well as Aintree University Hospital and Southport and Formby Hospital as well.
Lordy.
It's 2 o'clock.
That's what we've been hearing. My word. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. Don't forget to hit that thumb while you're in. I'd appreciate it a lot. Oh my. Oh my. You're not? You're not shocked? I'm dumbfounded. Jeez. So far, they're saying that they have treated 8 patients. Just wow. Northwest Ambulance Service has been putting out information. They said they've dispatched 13 ambulances along with specialized resources. They're at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, Aintree University Hospital, and Southport Formby Hospital. Oh my word, really?
Yeah, I think a sense of that, but also I think a sense of the scale of this response and also of the incident itself. You can see from our shot just the amount of police activity that remains on Hart Street here. There are still paramedic and ambulance vehicles down in that cordon as well. A fire engine. We have seen a couple of paramedic vehicles leave the scene in the last half an hour or so, but we've been told that more police vehicles are due to arrive as well. And I think that tells you that this remains a large scene. It remains very active. It's perhaps transitioning in terms of its being a scene from that emergency response.
Play nice in the chat.
And the investigation, and that clearly will continue for some time. There are a series of cordons from where we are at the end of Hart Street all the way down to what seems to be the middle of the block of this street of Victorian semi-detached residential houses. We know there are some businesses operating out of some of those houses as you go down this street, and the focus very much, as you can see, where all of that police activity is on that area. I just saw a few minutes ago a man who went up to the police officers on the cordon here and was trying to get some information. Clearly distressing for everybody, for all of the residents on this street, for everybody in Southport waiting for more information, and also clear that the police officers weren't able to tell him anything that was able to satisfy him, because I think there are so many questions with all of that information we've had from the police and the ambulance service and the various hospitals as well. There clearly are a lot of questions for people here, and this operation is going to go on for some time. It does. Of course, they were the first people to know that something was going on, as we heard from the man who saw those 4 air ambulances arriving on a field opposite his home, how unusual that was. He knew before anybody that something was going on, and the residents in this street who talked about hearing the sirens, seeing the response, they knew early on that something was happening, and they, like the rest of us now, wait for the confirmed details from the police and the ambulance services and those hospitals about exactly what has happened. They've cautioned, as police often do now after serious or in the middle of major incidents like this, caution people to beware of what's on social media, because there is so much that's out there that sometimes proves accurate, sometimes doesn't, and they don't want that kind of information spreading, because of course there will be family members of those who've been caught up in this who will need to hear the facts and need to hear the official version of events rather than something that's circulating on social media, and they will be very conscious of that always, that there are real people in the middle of this, real lives, family members, friends who will be frantic for information and to know what's gone on, and that spreads out from here, of course, from the scene where this investigation goes on to those 3 hospitals. And you mentioned Alderhay, of course, which is a children's hospital. That's one of the preeminent children's hospitals in the country. And the focus, I think, spreads from here to all of those places. And of course, the investigation. We know someone has been arrested. The police saying there is no wider threat to the public, but still a lot for people to learn about what's happened here. And it is still very early stages. Of course, it was only 10 to 12. This morning when the police say they were called here. So it's very early stages, and yet there is, of course, a clamour to know the answers to what happened here.
To 12 today, they seized a knife within that local area, and they have said that there is no wider threat to the public, but they have urged people to not come down to the cordon, to not come down to that scene, because now, whilst those casualties have been removed and at least 8 people are being treated for those stab injuries, the focus for officers now, as you can see some of them on the ground in their police vehicles, their main task is now to try and gather as much evidence as possible, and to try and comb that area forensically, to try and piece together exactly what happened, including in all of that. We'll be speaking to people within that local area to gather that witness testimony. What did they hear? What did they see? And over the coming hours, you will start to see officers in that trying to contain and gather as much as they can. So much of the footage that may have been picked up by CCTV cameras, by doorbell footage, by dash cam footage, all of that will start to feed in to those lines of inquiry to start to build up a picture of what exactly has been going on down in Southport.
Yeah, Nashna, as you've been talking to us, we've had an update from Alderhay Children's Hospital Trust, and that is, of course, one of the hospitals that the victims of this stab attack have been taken to. They say, we can confirm that the Trust has declared a major incident. The Trust is working with other emergency services to respond to this incident, and our emergency department is currently extremely busy. And they are now asking parents to only bring their children to the emergency department down at Alderhay if it is urgent. All other appointments and services are running as normal. So Alderhay Children's Hospital asking parents who may have a health emergency to only bring their children to the emergency department at Alderhay if it is urgent, because they have declared a major incident following what has happened in Southport, and that they are working alongside emergency service to respond to this incident, a major incident, according to Alderhay Children's Hospital. Well, let's just recap for you what we know so far about what is happening near Liverpool. Emergency services were called to an address on Hart Street not long before midday today. Pictures from the scene show a large number of police and ambulances there as emergency services reacted to the incident. More than a dozen ambulances attended the scene, 13 in total, along with armed officers. In a statement, Merseyside Police said, "We can confirm that
Don't forget to smash that thumb for me, guys."
Incident this morning, Monday, the 29th of July. At around 11:50 a.m, we were called to a property on Hart Street to reports of a stabbing. There are a number of reported casualties and more details will be confirmed when possible. Armed police have detained a male and seized a knife. He has been taken to a police station. They go on to say, "Please avoid the area while we deal with this incident. There is no wider threat to the public."
Wow.
Well, an update too from the Northwest Ambulance Service. In
Thanks,
its latest
Michael.
update, it
Thank you,
says,
thank you.
Northwest Ambulance Service is responding to a major incident following a call at 11:48 to Hart Street in Southport, following reports of multiple stabbings. We have dispatched 13 ambulances, along with specialised resources of our hazardous area response team, air ambulance and merit doctors to the scene. So far, NWAS has treated 8 patients with stab injuries who've been taken to Alderhay Children's Hospital, Aintree University Hospital, and Southport and Formby Hospital. And in the last
Pray
15
for the
minutes,
children, guys.
Alderhay
For
Children's
these
Hospital
babies.
have said that they can confirm that the Trust has declared a major incident, that they are working with the emergency services to respond to this incident and are asking parents only to bring their children down to Alderhay to the emergency department if it is urgent. All other appointments and services running as normal, but that the emergency department is currently extremely busy. So 8 casualties we know have been conveyed from the scene by Northwest Ambulance Service.
Gee.
Let's get more on this with our correspondent Ashna Hurry-Nag. So as we speak all the time, more details starting to be revealed.
Plenty more starting to be revealed, and we start to understand now exactly the pressures that those within those 3 hospitals, the pressure that has been put on those doctors and nurses in dealing and responding to such an incident, given the fact that we are now hearing that the emergency department at Alderhay Children's Hospital is under immense strain, immense pressure. They have said, and they have urged parents to only bring children in if they are in an absolute critical condition, given the fact that this is such an ongoing and clearly quite stressful situation for them to have to deal with. People at home may be wondering why the children involved in this incident, those who have suffered these injuries, are only being treated at Alderhay. Alderhay Children's Hospital is exactly that. It is the largest children's hospital within the North West. It is one of the largest children's hospitals in the UK. And Aintree Hospital and Southport and Formby, those are hospitals that only treat adults, which is why we have seen such a spread of those who have been injured being deployed in such a manner. We've also heard in the last half an hour or so from Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner Emily Sparrow. She has said she has been incredibly concerned and worried by what she has heard in this morning following this incident. She has reminded people, though, that this is being treated as an isolated incident in that there is no wider threat to the public. But she has said that she is deeply shocked and concerned about what she has heard unfold, and that is before we have heard about some of those being injured being children. And the Trust at Alderhay, we know they are doing their utmost to try and respond to this, but given the fact they have had to say that their emergency department is currently extremely busy, all other appointments, it should be urged and said, all other appointments and services are running as normal. But clearly there is immense strain on those within the NHS working up there after this major incident, which is still ongoing and still being dealt with by Merseyside Police and other emergency services personnel within the Northwest.
Ashna, thank you very much. Also getting response on social media from the local Labour MP for Southport, Patrick Hurley. He says he is deeply concerned by the reports coming from Merseyside Police about a major incident on Hart Street in Southport today. I'm hoping for the best possible outcomes to the casualties affected. My thoughts go out to all those affected their loved ones and to the entire community. Well, we're joined now by our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, who is down there actually at the scene for us. Greg, what are you able to tell us? What are people saying there? What are you able to see?
Well, you can see what we can see from our position here, which is a huge amount of police and emergency services reaction down in the middle of Hart.
Thanks for that link in there, Mexi. That's awesome. Just pray for these kids. I mean, what the actual? What would ever cause somebody to go into a Taylor Swift themed dance school and attack a bunch of kids?
Street, we're behind one of those cordons. There are a number of cordons actually along this street, and it has the sense of still a very active scene as far as the police and the ambulance services who are still there. There are also groups of residents dotted up and down the street within the cordon, watching on what was going on. From what we're hearing here, there is still a lot of confusion, I think, for a lot of people in this area as to what has happened. We have that detail from the emergency services, that detail from Merseyside Police, that a major incident has been declared after what happened in this street. They were called here at 10 to 12 this morning, called to a property here in Hart Street to reports of a stabbing and a number of reported casualties, and that has since developed with a statement from the North West Ambulance Service confirming that 8 patients were treated for stab wounds at the scene here in Hart Street. They dispatched 13 ambulances along with specialist resource hazardous area teams that they sent, as well as what they call merit doctors, and a number of patients have been taken to the Alderhay Hospital in Liverpool. Now, that is declared a major incident. Alderhay is a children's hospital in Liverpool, about 18 miles away from here. They are asking people not to go to the emergency department of the hospital because it is extremely busy unless it is a real emergency. So a sense of how busy things are there at a specialist children's hospital. We know that a number of air ambulances were seen by people locally leaving the scene here. But as you can see, a lot of activity still going on. And I think for a lot of the residents who are grouped around street corners here, some real concern about what has happened along this street this morning.
And Greg, a lot of people down there at these cordons really desperate for news. How are the police managing them?
It's still very active. I think the police are still organising themselves. There was a group just now that made their way off in different directions, I think, to ensure that this area remains sealed off. They've asked people not to come to this area until this incident has been dealt with. They've asked people not to speculate about what may have happened. As is always the case, there is an awful lot of speculation online, on social media, about what has happened here. But I think this is barely 2 hours on from the police being called here. This is very much still ongoing. We know that a man has been detained. The police have said there is no wider threat to the public after what happened here. But we know from some of that discussion on social media that people were very, very alarmed by what was going on. People barricading themselves into their houses, telling other neighbours to lock their doors and windows, to stay inside because of the concern about what was happening, and because some of the first reports of what happened here surfaced on social media before the police were able to tell us what from their perspective what had happened and what was going on. But I think you can see from our picture here, there is an extensive police and emergency services presence here. This feels like it is ongoing. Clearly that is a scene of a crime. That is a major incident in police parlance. It's clearly a significant scene of a crime, and the investigation aspect will continue for a long time. But of course, the response in terms of saving people's lives and getting people to hospital was the priority in those first couple of hours, to make sure that those who could be saved were saved, and that operation is of course still paramount in the minds of the emergency services. But the police operation still continuing. And I think for people inside this cordon as well, the members of the public inside the cordon, you can see it's a residential street. It's a nice sunny day. Southport is a destination for many people. It's on the sea. It's where on a day like this in the summer holidays, people come in their droves. But this is very different, and I think very alarming for a lot of the people who are standing down beyond these cordons, who live in these houses, who are neighbours of the property where this happened. And
at this point, we really don't know who this kid is. I mean, there's a lot of different things. They're saying possibly from Syria. I'm looking forward to getting an update from law enforcement to tell us exactly who this kid is. I see the name you just put up, and I find that really, really interesting. It's just, what the hell is going on out there? I can't imagine having it in your head to go attack a bunch of little girls.
that is, of course, very difficult for anyone to digest at a time like this.
Greg, thank you very much for the time being. Let's just now talk to local resident Ian Uzel, who joins us now. And Ian witnessed quite a lot of what happened this morning. Just explain for us what you saw, Ian.
Well, what I saw was just really the air ambulances arriving in the field opposite my house. I was a helicopter pilot in the Royal Marine, so anytime we get helicopter activity, I always go and have a look. And there's one air ambulance arrived, then a second one, and I thought that there was something going on. Also, there were ambulances and police cars speeding up and down, both ways up and down the road, both this road and up Norwood Road on the other side of the field. Then a third and a fourth air ambulance arrived, and once the fourth one dropped some members of the crew off, who were picked up along with others from the other ambulances by an ambulance at the side of the field and carted off from there. And then shortly before I left, I did see what appears to be a casualty being loaded into one of the helicopters. But that's all I saw.
Yeah. And were you able to work out where they were actually going to? Where was the centre of where this incident happened that they appeared to be attending?
No, but I could know it wasn't far away because the police helicopter was circling overhead. So it was not far away from here, but I couldn't tell where because the ambulances were going in two directions down two roads. So no idea. There was speculation that had been passed on, but that was all it was.
And what do you make of the scale of the response? Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, never. The most I've seen before is 2 air ambulances arriving at the fields. This is the normal place they arrive, either this field or the field just behind King George VI School. And this is the first.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what happened there. The other feed, they stopped streaming. Not quite sure what's going on with that.
Yeah, I think a sense of that, but also I think a sense of the scale of this response and also of the incident itself. You can see from our shot just the amount of police activity that remains on Hart Street here. There are still paramedic and ambulance vehicles down in that cordon as well. A fire engine. We have seen a couple of paramedic vehicles leave the scene in the last half an hour or so, but we've been told that more police vehicles are due to arrive as well. And I think that tells you that this remains a large scene. It remains very active. It's perhaps transitioning in terms of its being a scene from that emergency response to what comes after the emergency response and the investigation. And that clearly will continue for some time. There are a series of cordons from where we are at the end of Hart Street all the way down to what seems to be the middle of the block of this street of Victorian semi-detached residential houses. We know there are some businesses operating out of some of those houses as you go down this street, and the focus very much, as you can see, where all of that police activity is on that area. I just saw a few minutes ago a man who went up to the police officers on the cordon here and was trying to get some information. Clearly distressing for everybody, for all of the residents on this street, for everybody in Southport waiting for more information. And also clear that the police officers weren't able to tell him anything that was able to satisfy him, because I think there are so many questions with all of that information we've had from the police and the ambulance service and the various hospitals as well. There clearly are a lot of questions for people here, and this operation is going to go on for some time.
Thanks for that, Mexi. This is just beyond heartbreaking. Now keep my eyes peeled for something from law enforcement.
It does. Of course, they were the first people to know that something was going on, as we heard from the man who saw those 4 air ambulances arriving on a field opposite his home, and how unusual that was. He knew before anybody that something was going on, and the residents in this street who talked about hearing the sirens, seeing the response, they knew early on that something was happening, and they, like the rest of us now, wait for the confirmed details from the police and the ambulance services and those hospitals about exactly what has happened. They've cautioned, as police often do now after serious or in the middle of major incidents like this, caution people to beware of what's on social media, because there is so much that's out there that sometimes proves accurate, sometimes doesn't. And they don't want that kind of information spreading, because of course there will be family members of those who've been caught up in this who will need to hear the facts and need to hear the official version of events rather than something that's circulating on social media. And they will be very conscious of that always, that there are real people in the middle of this, real lives, family members, friends who will be frantic for information and to know what's gone on. And that spreads out from here, of course, from the scene where this investigation goes on to those 3 hospitals. And you mentioned Alderhay, of course, which is a children's hospital. It's one of the preeminent children's hospitals in the country. And the focus, I think, spreads from here to all of those places. And of course, the investigation. We know someone has been arrested. The police saying there is no wider threat to the public, but still a lot for people to learn about what's happened here. And it is still very early stages. Of course, it was only 10 to 12 this morning when the police say they were called here. So it's very early stages, and yet there is, of course, a clamour to know the answers to what happened here. From where I'm standing, I can't see any ambulances. I'm looking through the flashing lights that we can see, the blue lights. I can see vans, but I think they are police vehicles, and that fire engine that you mentioned down at the other end of the cordon. I don't think there are any ambulances here now. Obviously, those air ambulances left. Some of the paramedics who come in regular unmarked vehicles, they have left the scene as far as we tell. As far as we can tell, there could be more down there, but I don't see any ambulances as such in what I can see. But it's a confusing picture down there, and it is a real It is a real melee of emergency services response and at quite a distance. So it seems, and from what we've heard from the North West Air Ambulance Service and those hospitals, that those who needed to be transferred from here have been transferred. And that work, of course, would have happened very urgently. That's why they use air ambulances, particularly to somewhere like Alderhay. It's about 18 miles away. To get there so quickly is, of course, the priority. So it would appear that those who needed help, those who needed to be transferred from here, would have been transferred very quickly to receive the best possible care that they could have in a hospital setting rather than here at the scene. But if it's not ambulances, there is a lot of activity. And as I say, the police have told us more vehicles are due to arrive through this cordon to make sure we're all safely out of the way as they make their way through and down to that scene.
Just unreal.
We'll want to know what's gone on and what will happen next. But at the moment, it is from the police those bare facts about what they were called to here this morning, and as I say, that cautioning that there is no wider threat to the public, and that there is no and cautioning people again against speculation about what may have happened on social media. There is a lot of work going on down there.
I know what he's making the shop when you go.
I'm going to say it's mainly media where I'm standing. There are some people who've come down to find out, like us, what's happening. I've not spoken to anyone who's been inside the cordon as yet. There are people who've returned since we've been here and have been allowed through because they live in one of the houses nearest to the end of the street here. I think it's confusion. I think people heard sirens. They've seen a lot on social media about what has happened, but not.
Yeah, well said. I'm hoping we learn something more here in this little bit.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Right?
Yes, 1 second, I'm just sorting my earpiece out.
So we know 8 are at the children's hospital at this point. It sounds like most of these were kids that were attacked and 2 adult women is what we're hearing. I understand. I get that.
There's going to be cars coming in and out of here, you know, for for quite a while, so I don't know whether.
Yeah, I think we've just seen more officers arriving in unmarked vehicles, police officers, and in fact we're just being told that more vehicles will be arriving. So we should keep out of the way of those vehicles that are arriving to come through this cordon. In fact, we'll just move the camera to make sure we're not in anyone's way, trying to get into the scene. It is clear that there is a lot of activity down there still, and has been what the police were first called at 10 to 12. And the response from what people have said here was overwhelming and huge in its number, and is ongoing. That's very evident, and I think we expect there will be updates from Merseyside Police and the North West Ambulance Service as the afternoon goes on. But from what they have told us, and the scale of resources, particularly those 13 ambulances that were dispatched here, the hazardous response teams, the merit doctors as well, tells you a lot about the scale of what they're dealing with down there. And as we await more news from the police, of course, the concern for the locals that we can see on the corners outside of houses, on the streets surrounding this area.
It's clearing out. So I'm sure everybody that was involved in this attack is getting medical treatment. That guy's been picked up. Now they have to figure out what the heck actually happened. How does this guy get in there?
All right. Sade.
What do they do? Run in one of these houses?
We need to learn more about this kid, this 17-year-old. Felt the need to go in there and talk about it. In a taxi? Now get the taxi. I can't get over it. Showed up in a taxi.
Yeah, hello.
Why is that so
I think I imagine we'd stay here until you've got someone else. Yeah. Yep.
There's going to be cars coming in and out of here, you know, for quite a while. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, I think we've just seen more officers arrived in unmarked vehicles, police officers, and in fact we're just being told that more vehicles will be arriving. So we should keep out of the way of those vehicles that are arriving to come through this cordon. In fact, we'll just move the camera to make sure we're not in anyone's way trying to get into the scene. It is clear that there is a lot of activity down there still, and has been what the police were first called at 10 to 12. And the response from what people have said here was overwhelming and huge in its number, and is ongoing. That's very evident, and I think we expect there will be updates from Merseyside Police and the North West Ambulance Service as the afternoon goes on. But from what they have told us, and the scale of resources, particularly those 13 ambulances that were dispatched here, the hazardous response teams, the merit doctors as well, tells you a lot about the scale of what they're dealing with down there. And as we await more news from the police, of course, the concern for the locals that we can see on the corners outside of houses, on the streets surrounding this area.
So guys, I am going to leave this here and keep myself aware of what's going on. Hopefully we get updates from law enforcement, find out how these kids are doing. It's just, oh my God. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Hit that bell for notifications. And thanks again for being here. I appreciate all of our UK friends helping us decipher what is going on in this area. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.